So you've poured your heart and soul into a novel. Everything you had to give, you put into your work, and people didn't like it. Your critique partners dipped it in red ink, your beta readers dry heaved at every page, your editor said, "That's it, I'm taking those night courses to get my accounting certification. Anything but this." Failure is an inevitable part of life and of the writing process. As difficult as it is, failure is also incredibly important. And the surest way to live an unsatisfying life is to never put yourself in a position to fail. Speaking of positions to fail, consider subscribing to my channel. Wait, will that make you fail? I don't know. There are some specific things that you can do to accept failure and to grow from it as a writer. Every failure is a signal that something needs to change, and with the right mindset, you can change and overcome these obstacles. So let's talk about some of the ways writers can deal with those times when your work isn't well received, the times where you fail. I'm defining failure here broadly as any time a piece you produce doesn't live up to expectations. Those expectations could be that your beta reader will like it, that a publisher will accept it, or that you yourself will be satisfied with the work. Obviously, if this comes in the writing process, either at the beta read, critique, editing stage, then you have more opportunity to improve the novel. If it happens after publication, if you publish a novel and people don't like it, that's a different story, which is why you should get a lot of feedback before publishing, but I digress. The first thing we need to do is handle any sort of emotion involved with the failure. When we encounter failure, it's often our emotions which are the first thing to respond, and this response generally is not helpful for fixing the problem. Your emotions operate on feelings and intuition. They are very reactive and jump easily to conclusions. If you immediately lash out at your critique partners or feel like they have a vendetta against you, or you start blaming other external factors for why people didn't like your novel, then that's a sign that you're letting emotions dictate your response. Improving yourself and your work requires logic. It requires an evaluation of the facts from a calm, objective position. Emotions are not calm and objective. One thing about emotions is they tend to run out of steam if you give enough time. Waiting them out is honestly a good strategy. If you get a bad critique, let the negative emotions come, let them wash over you, but wait a day or a week or however long until you really start to take action, until you respond or react to this failure. This time is hard, but it will pass and you have to let it pass. The people who don't wait, the people who immediately say, "I'm done with writing forever," those are the people who don't improve. Once you've moved past that initial emotion, then you can sit back and evaluate the work from a more objective and thoughtful perspective. At this point, there are two roads you may need to go down. You have to ask, does this work not reflect my capabilities as a writer, or do I not have the capabilities to execute this work? In the first case, it may be that you need to spend more time on the piece. Maybe you got a little lazy with your last revision pass. Maybe you didn't put full effort in. Maybe you're on the third draft and the novel really needs a fourth draft. There's also the possibility that you might be keeping things in the work that deep down you know are bad, but your ego really likes them and so they're sticking around. This is the classic kill your darlings mantra. Even if you love something, whether it's a scene, a character, a plot, or in the worst case, a whole novel, if it just doesn't work, then it has to go for the good of the writing. In these situations, it's really the critique partner or beta reader or editor or whoever who is telling you what you deep down already knew, you just didn't want to admit it. This is one of the reasons why having others read your work is so important. It gives you that perspective that you would otherwise lack. We know these things deep down, but we only accept them as truth when someone points them out to us. Now, the other possibility here is that you don't have the skills to make your project work, that you aren't a good enough writer to bring the idea to life, that it's your capabilities that are the limiting factor. There are two very negative reactions to this reality. The first is defensive. People refuse to accept their inadequacies and instead focus their energy on defending their own mediocrity. They lash out at their critique partners or their editors. They say that readers are idiots these days and that their brains are being diluted by the internet and trashy novels. They bring up everything except the fact that they might just not be very good at writing. The other folks descend into hopelessness. They feel that their skills are fixed, that because they weren't blessed with Du Maurier-esque levels of talent or cheekbones, that they are doomed to an eternity of mediocrity. The reality is that's simply not true. You are not at your full potential right now, and how far you can go is not determined by how far you've come. Your skills and abilities as a writer are not fixed. They can grow and change through time. You need to accept where you are and your current level of ineptitude, but also acknowledge that you likely have a load of potential that hasn't been realized. Objectively look at your writing. What do you need to improve? Where do you need to practice? How do the writers that you admire approach a scene differently than you do? What are they doing that you aren't? What are you avoiding writing because you don't have the skills or you don't enjoy it? If you adopt this attitude, a bad critique is not a bad thing. It's a list of what needs to improve. It's a direction for where you need to go. It's a guiding light towards reaching your potential. I talked in a recent video about writing being an infinite pursuit, and this is what I mean. You can always get better. You can always learn more. If you have this mindset, writing the perfect novel is no longer the goal. Writing is the goal. Improving at writing is the goal. Failure becomes impossible in a sense because you only fail if you fail to learn. Even if people hate what you've written, as long as you take something away from it that can be improved, then it's a success. You're always looking for the next way to get better, the next thing you can be working on. And a negative critique will give you lots of those things. Now, as a quick aside, I will say that there's a possibility that you just got a bad critique in the sense that it wasn't a very high quality critique and it doesn't give you any actionable ways to improve. But that's kind of a different story from what we're talking about, and it's something I've discussed in another video a while back. So with all this failure stuff, just assume that the critique itself was good and it's pointing out actual actionable problems within your writing. The path to success isn't through avoiding failure. It's about learning to use failure as fuel. Ultimately, what needs to change here is your perception of yourself and your perception of the failures that you endure. And this is true whether it's your first novel and you can barely get dialogue formatted correctly, or whether it's your 100th novel and you're trying to get a specific emotional resonance across at a very deep level. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you treat failure as an opportunity, then you're winning. The people you should admire, the people you should aspire to be like, are the people who are in it every day. The people who accept failure and whose focus is on growth. Put your focus on growth and improvement, and failure won't be able to stop you. Unlike how I'm stopping this video because we're at the end of it. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, please check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. You may also want to check out my Your First Novel program, which is linked in the description, if you're looking for a comprehensive course to help you get through writing your first novel. The course covers everything from coming up with ideas, creating characters, setting and engaging plots, as well as writing great prose across over 50 video and written lessons, and you can get full lifetime access to all of the material by signing up at the link in the video description. So please check that out if it's something that interests you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.